From closed session, City Attorney, do we have any reportable action from closed session today?
No reportable action.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn the special meeting and we will come back to our regular meeting at 6 p.m. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. All right, welcome everybody to our Selma City Council regular meeting. It's February 3rd, 2026 at 6:01 PM in the Selma City Council chambers at 1710 Tucker Street in Selma, California, 93662. The teleconference phone number is 301-715-8592. The webinar ID is 891-6864-5005. When on the phone, if you wish to address the council during the public comment part of the agenda, press star 9 to raise your hand and we will select you from the meeting queue. Press star 6 to unmute and mute yourself. Notice to meeting attendees. Members of the audience shall not engage in disorderly or boisterous conduct, including the utterance of threatening or abusive language or other acts which disturb, disrupt, or impede or otherwise render the orderly conduct of a city council meeting infeasible. Before we go to our invocation, I would like everyone to please join me in a moment of silence in memory of our Selma Police Department officer, Gonzalo Carrasco, who tragically passed away 3 years ago, this January 31st. All of us at the city continue to have Gonzalo, his son, and his family in our prayers along with our community. Would you please bow your head for a moment of silence? Thank you, everyone. And now we will move on to our invocation with Pastor Jose Alvarez from the Iglesia Antioquia. Welcome back, Pastor.
Meant for pay? No. It's an honor to serve you guys. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we just thank you for the opportunity to be here. We just ask you to continue to use the people that you elected, Heavenly Father, to be in charge and in front, Heavenly Father, of the city. I just ask you that you pour your spirit upon them, Almighty God, and that you give them the wisdom and the ability, Heavenly Father, to do your works. God, I always ask you for divine protection upon them. God, I just ask you in these moments, Heavenly Father, that things are going forward, Heavenly Father, that you continue just to move, Heavenly Father, and give them grace to move everything in a successful way that they've been doing it, God. In the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you and we love you with all our hearts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Begin to the flag, days of America, and to the republic which stands, a nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Avalos.
Here.
Councilmember Oseguera.
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra.
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here. Potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Agenda changes or deletions. To better accommodate members of the public or inconvenience in the order of presentation, items on the agenda may not be presented or acted on in the order listed. Additions to the agenda may be added only pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.2B. City Attorney, do we have any agenda changes or deletions tonight?
Nothing to add or to delete, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney. With that, we'll move on to oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the City Council regarding any item on the regular meeting agenda over which the council has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issues raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Do we have any oral communications at this time?
Hi, Teresa Salas, 1701 Danube Avenue. I have a question. At the last meeting, the city engineer went through all the the things that were being planned, things that they were working on. One of the things was the entrance to Selma, the money that we had gotten through the state grant. And he talked about having it completed by June of this year. Is that the whole project? Is that the bear off ramp, the pillars that are going to be coming into town? primarily, I'm interested in the streets from the railroad tracks to East Front Street, that whole area. I mentioned it before, that you can't see hardly the lines on the road anymore, like the turn lanes and things. And it's just kind of, the traffic just kind of gets in one line and then they all kind of break off into different sections depending on where you're going to go. I was just curious. I was told that the lines were not going to be repainted until all that construction was done. So do we have a timeline more or less when that might take place?
City Manager?
I'll defer over to David.
Yeah, so I think the project you're referring to is the Clean California project. That is the project from State Route 99 east along Second Street to West Front Street. And that's the grant that we received from the state. It includes the improvements at the off ramps with the bears and the sign. Current status is that the design consultant A&M Engineering is on the final stages of trying to get the encroachment permit from Caltrans to be able to do that work in the right of way. Once that encroachment permit is issued, then we believe that their plans are ready to go out to bid. So that timeline that they gave us is that if that all goes well and Caltrans issues the encroachment permit, it can go out to bid and begin construction and hopefully then work through the spring, into the summer potentially. The striping that the lady is talking about is if it's near the railroad or if it's from railroad to the east front, there is the railroad right of way. And there is no work planned for within that right of way without going to the railroad company, and we have to work with them to get a permit to fix that striping. So it's potential. We know it needs to be either restriped or refreshed, and that's something we can work with Public Works on. But it's not part of this grant project, which stops at West Front Street. It will then be an issue either with Public Works or we may have to just work with the railroad to get that done because it is a city street, but we can't just do it, I think, without a permit.
Right, it's the railroad right away. So that's intervening issue. That's the way it is in every city.
Many feet from the railroad off.
The UP right away is 50 feet from center of the tracks, both directions.
Okay, because the first time I asked about it, they said it was part of this project, and now they're saying it's not.
It's not an engine.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
you're wrong.
there are two parts to that project. The
Yeah,
one
well, I
for
mean,
second-
now they're saying it's going only up to West Front, and I was told that part from to East Front was part of this project, and now they're saying it's not.
So
Mayor, we can work on getting these questions and reach out to Teresa on this, but because it's not
Great.
agendized.
And then at the end of departmental reports, feel free to come up to our city engineer, city manager, or our public works director and have further discussions, but thank you, appreciate that. Anybody else with oral communications at this time? Anybody online or on the phone with a question or a comment?
Mayor, I have no users online right now.
Thank you. With that, we will come back and move on to our next item, which is the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar category are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and made part of the regular agenda. The council can then approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Does council have an item or items they would like removed tonight from the consent calendar? Is there a motion to approve items 1-1 through 1-6?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Avalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Oseguera,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes, so now we are moving on to the departmental reports. I mentioned previously, city staff and contract employees present will be recorded in the minutes. City manager, what's your report tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Since we last met, I've met with a couple of developers regarding ongoing developments in various stages. And we're making progress on those, looking for some more information and some more concrete information before I pass it out to everybody. But a lot of these are kind of in planning stages right now. So I also met with Fresno EDC to discuss Selma's needs and their continued support, in addition to discussing the May ICSC event and strategizing on how they can assist the city with that. Attended a Selma Tactical Urbanism meeting with city staff and engineers to discuss locations for the final pilot study of the grant and potential locations. This final study will be looking at temporary speed humps, cushions near a couple of our schools, such as Eric White, Andrew Jackson, and the high school. And then I also met with the American Legion and Public Works regarding the lighting improvements at Veterans Plaza. A tentative work schedule has been set with their contractor for the week of February 9th. And then our new city planner, Megan Lawrence, started last week and has hit the ground running. And then finally, I have been working with our finance regarding the mid-year budget, and we are meeting with all department heads, and that's been taking up quite a bit of time right now. And that's it.
And I want to say thank you for your weekly activities report, the activities report of all the department heads. It's so informational, really informative. Thank you for that. And it's on our city website as well. So, everybody is part of this, so you can kind of see what the departments are doing, what city manager's doing, and then, bring your questions to city council or make an appointment with the city manager or any of the department heads. So thank you for that. Deputy City Manager, do you have a report tonight?
The only other item I wanted to report on is we finished the recruitment for community services, our community development director, and did not feel that the candidate pool that we had enough experience for what we really need in Selma. And so we've opted to re-recruit that position. And so I'm working with the city manager. We'll be advertising that in Western cities, a couple other places. And so I'm currently working to try and possibly bring in a retired director to fill that spot on a part-time basis, just to cover us during that time, since it's an extended period of time. So.
Great. Thank you for your report. Community Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So I just wanted to give a quick little update, or not update, but report on our senior prom. Very successful event. There's a lot of people that I want to thank for this event, so I wanted this to be on record. So I wanted to thank the Portuguese Hall for allowing us the space, Dan Barcelos for the catering, Just Us Band for the live music, FCRTA and MV Transportation for the transportation for our seniors that took advantage on the after hours transportation. Cheryl and Daniel for their photo booth that they donated to us. The Selma Fire Department for showing up bright and early with us and hauling tables and chairs. The Selma Leos Club for waiting upon our seniors. They were our wait staff. They were in charge of making sure their cups were full, that they were served dinner and then cleaned up after. So they did a wonderful job. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but Gorgeous Hair Salon, also their staff donated their time, and seniors were able to go in and get their hair done and get lashes put on if they provided them. And so that was just a wonderful amenity that our staff connected with over at the salon. So we're really happy about that partnership. And then lastly, to all the members of our community who donated a raffle prize and assisted with that. I think we had about 20 raffle items that we handed out that evening. And a special thank you to Mayor and to Councilmember Avalos for coming by and also bringing a raffle prize for our seniors. And so I'm so sorry if I missed anybody. I hope I caught everybody. But again, just such a wonderful event. I had one of our seniors say, you know what, Liz, we need to do this every 5 years. 5 years is good.
5 years on the
And I
Olympic
looked at her and I
schedule.
said, well, guess what? We're doing this every year. This is going to become an annual thing. We're going to keep it going. Hopefully it grows. And if we run out of space, we're just going to have to find a different location. So we're going to make it work. But other than that, again, thank you to everybody who supported that event. We're excited for next year's event. We're already looking at dates for next January to potentially host this again. And then the last two things I wanted to just say were we did have our full-time recreation or community services coordinator start this past Monday, and she's been amazing, really wonderful addition to our team. And we do have our animal services manager starting this coming Monday, so we're really excited to keep growing and expanding our services. That's all I have.
Good job. Sounds great. Great report and great job with that senior
Don't
prom
forget
director.
April 10th. You keep forgetting. My goodness.
April 10th, we're hosting Selma Live in downtown Selma. We have a country singer coming and some line dancing. I won't announce the name yet because I don't think it's out yet. I'm not sure, but more information coming soon.
Sounds good. All right. Finance Director Moreno.
Yes, Mayor Robinson and council members. So before you, you have a packet in front of you, and it's the final audit for the Special Tax Street Fund and the Road Maintenance and Rehab Program. It's for fiscal year 23-24. So this audit was a random audit. The last time that we had an audit from the state controllers, the state controllers was back in February 2008, auditing the 05-06 audit. So they were in-house in the whole month of August for 4 weeks, gathering data from us to make sure that we were in compliant. So I'm glad to say that it resulted in a clean audit and that the city was in full compliance with all requirements. So I'm happy to see that. Yeah.
How about a round of applause for our finance department?
It wouldn't happen with my finance team because it took a lot of work. I know Andrea did a lot of pulling data and stuff, but it's a team effort in the finance to make sure that we have
You
all the
don't get
records.
a lot of fanfare, but you deserve it. You're the unsung heroes of the city. Thank you for all your hard work. Even though it seems anonymous, it's not. You really are appreciated.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Fire Chief Webster.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of items to report this evening. The first one, we've been working with Granted Solutions and with Sonia, and we submitted a Office of Traffic Safety grant, and that is for the purchase of auto extrication equipment, which is commonly known as the jaws of life. As you know, we have a pretty busy freeway system going right through the middle of town. This time of year is especially dangerous just because of the fog. And so having modern equipment accessible to our staff out in the field is just critical to the safety of all of the travelers that go through as well as our citizens. So very well-written grant from Sonia. I really appreciated the cooperation and collaboration there. She worked closely with Battalion Chief Kutka on that submission, and so we're hopeful that we get awarded that grant and are able to purchase that equipment. The second item, today we held the final interviews for the recruitment of firefighters, which is our entry-level position in the fire service here. Myself and Fire Marshal Rivas sat in the panel. Had an outstanding candidate pool, which is very exciting for me, but also makes that selection a little more challenging just because of the talent that we had. And one thing that I'm tremendously proud of is that the City of Selma Fire Department this round really attracted a pretty significant pool of candidates, and in communications with other area fire departments, recruitments in public service is pretty challenging these days. And this department attracts a pretty big group, which is truly a testament of just this community, the support from council over the years to invest in the fire department as a whole, and really the professionalism of our staff. And so, you know, having that pool of candidates and the talent that we have, you know, it's when you start with that, it just, you know, we can go so much further, and it really benefits the department as a whole and just the community. So thank you, council, for your continuous support and investment in the fire department. And those results are definitely showing. So end of report.
Thank you, Chief. That's really good news about the depth of talent pool and the firefighter selection. Glad it's you making that decision and not me. All right, Public Information Officer Moreno.
Members of the council, I wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow's a big day. The City of Selma is hosting the Blossom Trail opening ceremony. As you know, this kicks off the Blossom Trail festivities. Every city hosts it every single different year. It's Selma's turn. So it's a very Selma-centric event. There'll be lots of restaurants offering food there, some video, highlighting our city and also highlighting our FFA students at Selma High School. It's going to be a great event. It's tomorrow, February 4th at 11 a.m. at the Selma Art Center. It's in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce, who's kind of leading the charge, but also it couldn't be done without city staff, Art Center, Public Works, who did a great job in cleaning the carpets and making sure the facility is up to date. It's gonna be a great event tomorrow. So I want to remind everybody, it begins at 11 a.m. There's a flyer in the lobby as you walk in if you want to take one, just as a reminder. So it'll be a good day.
And the public is invited.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Looking forward to it, Director. All right, Public Works Director Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple things tonight. One thing, speaking of downtown and the Blossom event tomorrow, staff has wrapped up all but one of the planners downtown. The one that's left will be done first thing in the morning, so we will have planners completely finished from Second Street all the way to First Street. So another shout out to my crew. I think that my guys are amazing, and they just prove that that we can meet deadlines and we can get work done when it comes right down to it. So I'm very proud of them. The only other thing I have to update is last week I took week before last, I'm sorry, I took 6 of our staff to World of Concrete for our second year. We did shorten it up and we only did 2 days at the show instead of an entire week because we realized last year that some of the classes that we were involved in were a little above and beyond what we would actually be needing for our staff here. So we did go for 2 days. We did classes for a day, did the expo event on the second day, and then drove home on the third day. So it was a great event. 3 guys from Parks and 3 guys from Street Maintenance went. So it was a good turnout, and I enjoyed it tremendously. So end of report.
Thank you, Director. And that planner, is that the one that's left to do right there on High Street across from the Veterans Park?
The planner that's left is the one that's in front. There's 2 in front of Bloomie's opposite of the street signal pole. So we did the big one and we still have the small one to do next to that. We haven't looked at the other side because it was pretty restricted with the plant that's in there and the size of the planter. So we left that one. We can have that conversation if that needs to be added.
It's a pretty big one. It's in front of Parmender's building there. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. In the future. Thank you. Okay. And with that, we will say good night to our departmental heads who don't have any more business with the city, and encourage anybody here tonight who would like to continue their discussion or start a discussion with our department heads to do so now as we take a 5-minute break. We are back in session after our departmental reports. We're going to move on to our first item of business tonight, which is a public hearing. The public hearing is item 3.1, and it's consideration of resolution 2026-02R to approve the annexation of track 6244, which is the Amberwood Phase 1 to Community Facilities District 2006-01 and establish zone of benefit B. City Engineer Horn.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is a public hearing item is in order to bring in the lots and the properties that are created by tract 6244, which is the Lennar subdivision that's under construction. The tract map was just recently recorded as of last week. So the map is recorded. The lots are legal lots. There was a subdivision agreement that went along with the tract map and was recorded at the same time. And in that subdivision agreement, it lays out the requirements that the subdivider has agreed to construct and to finish. And it also includes the understanding and the requirement to annex the properties into the Community Facilities District, the CFD. So tonight, as far as a public hearing, this is in order to allow the public to provide any protest or comment on the annexation. It's a process that we have to go through to add properties to LLMDs and also CFDs. In the staff report, you'll see a summary of what some of these costs will be for each property. The justification for those costs, the calculations for those costs were all worked out through that subdivision agreement process. So the subdivider had the opportunity to understand and review all of the costs that are being proposed and included in the CFD. And all of that documentation was included as an attachment to the subdivision agreement that was recorded. So tonight, as far as the public hearing, we wanted to make sure and conduct this appropriately as this moves forward and the resolution, if approved. Once the properties get their assessment or assessor number parcels, we have a process with finance to make sure that each of those properties are sent to the Fresno County as far as the tax collection. But there will be no revenue or taxes paid until those properties are sold and people are actually living in those properties. So this is not something that will start immediately, but it will start after construction, after people move into those homes. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
And Lennar, I believe, is looking at trying to pull within this next year about 50 permits or so.
That means they're going to build 50 homes this year.
That's kind of what they're initially looking at right now.
No. And so as they build them and they're sold and they're occupied, they become part of the CFD, and the city starts charging for these services on an annual basis based on the number of units that are sold. Correct. Okay.
And the finance director may be able to explain more of how it's similar to any other tax type implication to properties that we send it at a certain time of the year. It gets put on the tax roll. So it won't be on this year's tax roll, but if sold and created, it could be on next year's tax roll. It's my understanding.
Finance director, does that amount change every year for the unit owners?
Depends on the, on the
Yeah.
parcel. Or
In this document,
unit.
it does add, or this document includes an annual increment that has been previously agreed to for cost of living. So it's different than some of the LLMDs that we deal with that don't have that cost of living increase. The CFD does have that included in it in the document.
The last question before we open the public, unless council has any issues. CFD can coexist with an LLMD. You can have both on
Potentially,
what particular area?
This proposal is just a CFD, so it includes the same things that the LLMDs would include. But this includes more as far as police and fire, storm drain, street maintenance, things that the LLMDs do not include.
So generally, most developers choose one or the other.
Either or. The one we have a Community Facilities District on in Selma would be the Vineyard Estates subdivision. Is that a current CFD? Or is that just an LLMD?
Correct. Track 52-17, yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing. If we have any public comment or input for or against this item, now is your time to let us know. Please step up with any comments for or against this public hearing item. Do we have anyone on the phone or online with a comment on this public hearing item?
Mayor, I see no hands raised at this time.
1057 Mill Street, Rose Robertson. So is it fair to ask about when people could start reserving their lots? And is there any kind of models anywhere they could go look at? That's what I'm getting right now to ask that information. I mean, because if it's going to be this year, how quickly are they going to be able to start reserving their lots? But normally they go look at some models, even if it's in another city. Thank you.
City Manager, is that something that's part of the CFD public hearing item tonight?
No, but it's something that I can address with Lennar and get that
Bring
information.
that back to the council. Great, thank you for that. With that, unless we have anything else, I will close the public hearing and bring the matter back to council. Does council have any issues or any questions or anything they would like to bring up for or against this item before I ask for a motion? Is there a motion to approve this
Make a
public
motion.
hearing item? Is there a second? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo.
No, it's Chip.
Oh, was it Avalos? I'm so sorry. Councilmember Avalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Oseguera,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes, okay, item passes. We'll move on to our next public hearing item of the evening, which is 3.2, public hearing, first reading and introduction of ordinance number 2026-01, amending section 5-25-10 of the Selma Municipal Code to extend the term length of the Downtown Selma Business Improvement District Advisory Board members from 1 year to 2 years. Director Moreno.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. As you mentioned, tonight's item is a public hearing and the first reading of ordinance 2026-01, which proposes amending the municipal code section 52510 to extend the term of the length of the Downtown Business Improvement District Advisory Board members. We want to extend it to from 1 year to 2 years. The board recommends this extension to allow more time for project development, implementation, and evaluation. The change also improves the continuity on the board, and it brings the bids, terms, and structure in line with the rest of the city boards and commissions.
Great, thank you, Director. I've been to a few of those meetings when this very issue was brought up, and definitely the board members were in alignment that the term limits were too low on this. They needed two, and then this has been brought back to the city council as a result. Does council have any questions before we open the public hearing tonight?
Quick question. Most of these we have in the city are for 2 years anyhow. You know, Pioneer and other agencies we have. So I'm asking that question that way. I noticed it just had the 1 year here.
Yeah, it aligns with the commission appointments.
Our boards are 2 years. Yeah.
That will open the public hearing. Does the public have any input on this item at this time? Do we have anyone online or on the phone with a pro or con position on this public hearing item?
Mayor, I see no hands raised at this time.
That we will close the public hearing, bring the matter back to council, and ask for more discussion or a motion to approve item 3.2 in the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Avalos,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Oseguera,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes, moving on to our Next item, this is a regular business item and it's a discussion item. It's consideration of a transportation sales tax measure to replace and or enhance Measure C revenues. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the main event of the night, the title card. But tonight is about information and seeking direction from council. This isn't about adopting a new measure or anything. We're just looking for council to confirm whether to proceed, and if so, under what structure. And tonight we have Kendall Flint with DKS assisting us with a presentation. And I'll turn it over to her, and then we can address any questions afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Kendall Flint. I'm the Regional Director of Communications and Strategic Planning for DKS Associates. And I've been working on transportation sales tax measures and other types of measures for over 30 years throughout California. Actually, your city manager and I were colleagues working for the Madera County Transportation Commission with there. So what I'm here to talk with you about tonight are sort of the options before you that the council could consider if you chose to move forward and consider an additional sales tax measure to benefit the city of Selma. Next slide, please. Ooh, fancy. So Measure C, which is currently the half-cent sales tax from the Fresno County Transportation Authority, has been generating quite a substantial amount of money over the last 30 years. The challenge is that recently the FCOG board and the FCTA board were unable to come to an agreement moving forward to place this on the November ballot. So a separate issue or a separate citizens initiative is being put forth by Transportation for All, which is a coalition of nonprofits and other agencies throughout the county. The challenge here is that the measure will expire on April 1st of 2027, which means all of the cities and the county will no longer receive funds from Measure C, which currently in this city were used for local road repairs, pothole repairs, transit, and other types of services. Approximately $1.7 million per year would be taken out of play for here at the city of Selma. The other challenge is that there is a rumored second opportunity or second measure that may move forward to the November ballot. So we could potentially have two competing measures, both citizens initiatives, to try to reinvent Measure C. One of them has substantially more investment in transit services, and one of them has more investment in the local road programs and regional. So these are very different. Either way, it does not affect the presentation I'm going to give you tonight, but it's just for context so that you know that that is what's happening. The challenge when two measures show up on a ballot in California, the majority of times, regardless of what the subject is they both fail. And so we're hopeful that one of them passes because we would love to see the city of Selma and others get some additional funds. But in case that doesn't happen, your city manager and staff have asked us to take a look at some options for you to consider. Next slide, please. So you're very familiar, I'm sure, with Measure S. This is what's called a special tax. A special tax is passed by a jurisdiction and it specifies the specific use of the funds, which in this case were for police and fire. This currently generates, based on a half cent, $2.7 million every year for the city of Selma. What we know is that all of these funds have really dramatically improved police services, fire services, and public safety in general here. However, when we do look ahead, they're still outpacing, the need is still outpacing the amount of money that's been raised. So one of the questions came up is that, well, if we're going to replace the transportation sales tax money that was lost, is there an opportunity for us to maybe make a broader type of tax, which I'll talk about in a moment, that is more of a quality of life that could be used to stopgap or replace, if you will, the transportation, help our police and fire get where they need to be, as well as parks and recreation, code enforcement, and a lot of other things that the city could use. So if you go to the next slide here. So the options really are in California, a city can go ahead and impose another local tax that's only for folks in the city of Selma, right? The challenge here is that California state law says that you can only have a sales tax that is 2% there's locally generated, right? Because when we currently pay sales tax now, 6% of that goes to the state of California, and then an additional 1.5% comes to the city of Selma. That's what you're already getting for your general fund, and that's how most cities actually make themselves whole. You can actually bring that number up so you get to a 10% cap. Now, currently, Measure C holds 0.5% of that cap. So if you were going to consider another sales tax measure in order to remain underneath the cap, you'd have to, pardon me, I'm going to sneeze. You have to stay underneath that amount. So it would be looking at either a 0.5 cent sales tax, 0.5%, or 0.75%. If you do that, then whatever happens with Measure C, if it passes, great, there's no conflict. If it doesn't pass, you can always go back later and make an adjustment. What is also important to note in that kind of context is that if the county of Fresno or a larger agency decided to have a different type of tax, and the county of Fresno, as an example, was considering another sales tax for police and fire, potentially other things. If that comes up, your opportunity as a local agency to pass your own tax kind of goes away because they will take that percentage from the whole region. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important for you to know in context why we're talking about this now and why it's important to make those decisions. So if you decided to go forward with a 0.75% sales tax, that new measure could generate over $4 million a year. If Measure C passes, you would get both. So you go from your 1.7 to basically almost $6 million a year on the positive side. Next slide, please. Now, there are two types of taxes. You mentioned, just mentioned a moment ago, the Measure S was a special tax, and that's where it was aligned with a very specific use. Those taxes require a 2/3 majority of the electorate to pass that tax. A general tax, which sometimes doesn't make sense to me because it's more general, you would think that would be harder to pass, but nope, that's actually easier. It's a straight 50% plus one. In that case, you can do things for general services, or as I mentioned, you can look at something more broadly that the city could align with council priorities and with your local residents' priorities as time goes on. Next slide. So when you look at the two different options here, a special tax you might say would be just to replace the transportation potentially, and that would be replacing Measure C or supplementing Measure C if it comes back and is passed in some way, shape, or form. And that would take care of street maintenance, ADA improvements, safe routes to schools, bike and pedestrian. A general tax could be used for all of those things, as well as parks and recreation, better lighting, signage, as I mentioned before, public safety and infrastructure improvements. And I think you're all aware at this point, the city is considering annexations. The city is looking at ways to improve economic development. So all of these things kind of feed into the health of the infrastructure and what we have here on the ground. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these are all the things that you might be able to call out in a quality of life tax if you decided to go that route. And in these types of measures, again, it would still get its own letter. It would still have citizen oversight. You would still do annual reports to let people know where that money went. And it would still be part of the budget planning process through your finance department. So it would all be very open and transparent so that people could, again, follow the money and know how the money was used. Next slide, please. So one of the questions that came up in this process is, well, is there a way we could write the ballot language to say, well, if Measure C doesn't pass, we'd like to ask for a full percent. If it does pass, then we'll, keep our 3/4. Unfortunately, in California state law, you cannot do that. The only other option would be to have two measures on the ballot at the same time, one with one percentage and one with another. And I can tell you that in my professional experience, that is a losing proposition because it's confusing to the public. And they both, some more likely than not, both of them fail. But what you can do is if you wanted, you could wait in November when the election results come out and you could see what happened with C. And if it was the council's direction, you could call a special election in March as soon as you could do it. In that case, you would have, if it passed at that time, you could then start collecting funds in July of 2027. Now, in this scenario, you would be missing funds from C for that 3-month period. If you don't do anything and wait, let's say till 2028, that's 2 years of revenue that you would be losing from that Measure C gap, right? So that's something you really do want to consider. And in each of these things, there of course is a cost. We're reached out to the registrar of voters. There's different ways to hold a special election. One is where you have people come to polling places, the traditional. Others are all vote by mail. We need to figure out what the challenges are for each, but the cost for a city the size of Selma would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 is what we're thinking right now. Next slide, please. So the options for before you tonight, and in your agenda packages, you probably got the full report with all the different machinations that might happen, as well as a time frame about how this could actually roll out for November. But you could either choose to ask staff to direct us to move forward with a 1/2-cent sales tax specific to transportation. Or frankly, a 1/2-cent sales tax could also be for general. You can go to a 3/4% sales tax, again, for general use. That would be more the quality of life. You do have an option for pursuing alternate tax rate structures, but we're not really finding a benefit to that to start getting to those kinds of, smaller numbers. And then you would direct us and staff to come back with a proposed ballot measure framework, schedule, and a preliminary expenditure plan. Now, you currently have in your package a preliminary schedule. And one of the things I've been talking about with the city manager, there are the way that most folks would do this, and our advice to be to follow suit, is to get into polling where you actually ask the community in a statistically valid format what they think and what the odds are of passage. And if you did that in the April timeframe, it would give you enough time to get that information back and know whether or not you have the right percentage to move forward. And so for as an example, if you're doing a general tax and your polling comes back at 58, 59, 60%, we would advise you to go ahead and move ahead with that into the November election. So you've locked it in and there's no chance that someone else can get there first, so to speak. If your polling is not very strong, then you can wait and see what happens with the fall election and determine whether or not you need to do more outreach and engagement and whether or not you want to move forward in March. The cost of the polling is approximately $28,000 to $31,000. And that would be inclusive of what we call top lines, all of the folks that participate, and reports back here to council. So in order to make all this happen in time for a November election, we would want to start immediately with conversations and outreach with the community, business owners, economic development, people that are moving goods through the area, certainly your larger employers, chambers of commerce, your resident groups, to kind of get a sense of where people are at with that. And then we would develop both the ordinance and the expenditure plan and all of the documents that go along with that. We can then take that information and push that out for the polling in April. And then we would come back before you likely in May. And if you choose to move forward, you would have the decision point at that time, whether to request that the registrar or the county in this case, place it on the ballot for you in November, or you can wait until a later date to call a special. And so that concludes my presentation, but I know you may have a multitude of questions and I'll do my best to answer them as best I can.
Just a few. Thank you, Kendall. Appreciate it. And just by way of background, Kendall was, and her firm, DKS, was the consulting firm on Measure C for the Council of Governments. That, as everyone has seen, has been full of conflict. And DKS, I think, made it through, what, about the first 6 months, 7 months of that, and then called it a day.
We stepped away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that measure has been abandoned by majority vote of COG. So that will be conducted by a private interest group, Transportation for All. They are not government affiliated. And they are working on, at this point, they're working on circulating a petition. So what does it take to get a countywide tax measure going?
So they're going to need to have approximately 20% of the registered voters in order, because they want to have a cushion. They have to have all those signatures in by April. And as I mentioned, there may be a competing measure that will also be seeking signatures. Those are a $400,000 investment approximately in order to get that going. Their measure is very different than what the polling and the public told us they wanted in the original measure with a substantial reduction in anything that would go for regional projects and a substantial increase in transit services. So they're very different. There's a second measure that is potentially coming out. It has not opened up yet, but that would have a much more balanced approach. That would have more funds for the local agencies as well as a reasonable amount of money for the regional projects for things like evacuation planning, roadway enhancements, the airport, that kind of thing.
So we could really be looking at two competing measures this November election for this, for a road tax in effect. We could
It
be
is
looking
possible.
at that. Then if Selma sponsored its own, then we'd be looking at potentially three. Or if we did that second option that you talked about, where we said, well, we should do like, the first option you can vote for, which you didn't recommend. We do one option with a smaller percentage and one option with a larger percentage based on what happens with the other tax measures that are on the ballot.
Yeah, I think, my advice to council is, first of all, I think that we recognize that there's a need for the funding when you look ahead at the services and the things that are expected of this community as it grows. Also where you are right now. So it's not just down the road, but where we are today. So if you set aside C for just a second, you still need additional funding in order to reach all the things that you need to do. With C, if it does have the two competing measures, again, the likelihood is not good that they pass. It's just not something that is normal. But on the other hand, if one of them does pass, great, you'll continue to see that money. But this would be not only an insurance policy against C, but also an opportunity to lock in a rate. Because as I mentioned, the state mandates you can't go over that 2%. And there are places in California that have done that, but that's a legislative fix. And just by way of what my work is, I'm working currently with the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, and they were successful in getting Senate Bill 333 passed and signed by the governor, which gave them a 5-year window in order to extend or enlarge the amount of tax increment that could be gathered in that county. And they did that because so many of their local agencies were passing or trying to pass their own half-cent sales tax measures to supplement what was going to be coming from a potential larger measure from their COG. And so it's not uncommon, and in fact, it's getting more and more common for local agencies to want to keep more control of their money in their communities and use this legal course in order to make that happen.
And then part of the issue and part of the confusion and where those conflict and fight against each other is that they're similar measures doing the same thing. And we can put on a similar measure as well, or we can look at a holistic approach and focus on sort of a quality of life measure and focus on what that means for the city and what that means for our residents. Improvements to streets, improvements for parks, and improvements to safety within our community. So it doesn't just become a transportation measure in competition with potentially two transportation measures. It becomes its own City of Selma focused measure. And that helps to benefit our residents.
Did council have any additional questions before we open it to the public for comment? With that, we'll open the agenda item to the public. Does anyone have a comment or a question at this time?
Teresa Salas, I'd like to know how that would affect police and fire's Measure S now. If we pass something else like the general one, would that take away Measure S and then put it all in one big pot?
No.
No, it would not. Measure S would still be its own separate special revenue, specific only to them.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody online or on the phone with a comment or a question about this agenda item?
Mayor, I see no hands raised at this time.
That will bring the matter back to council.
So, like I said, we're looking for kind of direction. I think with what Kendall had said was doing the initial polling and seeing kind of where we're at on that. seeing if it is viable to do that. And if there is a potential measure that you're looking at, percentage, and then we can look at that polling and see what that is and see if it is viable.
So I've been involved in this for a long time as our Fresno Council of Governments representative. The last 14 meetings, I think, have been on this, and I know I've been one who's brought this up early in council a couple years ago. Hey, we better look at Measure C because it's coming up and it's not a given because it failed in the 2022 election. So it is hard to get a tax passed, and this one has already failed, so it already has that strike against it. This is a 30-year measure, and there's been a lot of positive and negative press on this. So there, in my opinion, there will be no other measure that the county will be bringing forward. It's just going to be this. It's just going to be the variation, this variation of the old Measure C. So we're not going to talk about anything else that the county's going to bring up other than Measure C. And in my opinion, Measure C stands for measure of confusion right now, because we're going to have potentially 2 Measure Cs on the ballot. If we put one on the ballot as a city, I mean, we just potentially multiply the potential for it to fail. I think this is all great information. I think this is timely information. Polling does have a shelf life, so I don't know if it's time to poll at this time, just for the reason that I think we have a potential for a tax which is never favored by the public and should be. I don't favor them. I don't think anybody up here favors taxes. But, you know, having 3 is potentially dooming it to fail. So I think, you know, we take this under consideration, and I think we do have to look at what happens at the election in November, whether the variation of Measure C passes with the T4A version, which only requires 50% plus 1 vote. So that will be an allocation of 65% to the city for transportation. It will be an allocation of almost nothing for regional projects, which is why I had issues with it. But we will get 65% for our streets and roads, which is more than it was before. And that's for 30 years. So that version could very well pass. It also has a lot more in public transit, which hasn't really shown an increase in ridership since the measure first came up. Or since last 20 years. So that's leaving a lot of people scratching their heads why the significant increase in the public transit component. So there are definite issues there. So it's not a done deal that that's going to pass either, but it could. And then there is another measure that's more similar to the 2022 one that's being brought up by folks who are with Caltrans and really understand the nuts and bolts. And they are potentially bringing it out as a refinement on the other measure. And now Selma. We might bring up something for a tax that says, hey, it's a general tax. We're going to fund, you know, public safety, which, you know, is very worthy and definitely needs it. But we already have a 0.5-cent sales tax on that. And I think when you throw all this in the gumbo, I think you get potential for a real problem, and none of them win. And I think that would be bad for us. So I think at this stage, I think this is very important to stay in touch with DKS to keep monitoring the progress of this. And just in my opinion, if council concurs with consensus, to keep this under advisement, and let's see what happens with the general election. And then based on those results, we come back with what we need to do after that, with potentially a special election for a quality of life measure, for an enhancement to Measure S, public safety, and roads. It really kind of depends on what happens with these 2 Measure C ballot measures that are coming up. Does council have any comment?
Yes, I do, Scott. I actually, I attended 2 of the meetings of COG that you discussed. And the reason why I attended them, one thing about myself, I like to, I'm the guy that's hands on the ground, you know what I mean? That's most school. And when I attend these meetings, I evaluate the consistency of Measure C, what is happening on the front runner and where it's at now and where it started and where it's going. There's some issues, unfortunately, two measures that are coming about, unfortunately. And she just made a comment earlier that when you put two ballots, you confuse the voter. And you're right. If you're a voter like yourself, anybody out there, you don't want to confuse, because once you start confusing vote, you lose trust. And trust is very important in the American people in voting. And being honest and being transparent with them and tell them what these things are for and for the future of society, how you want to proceed on our economic development in our cities, you have to be honest with them. Once you put two ballots on a measure, possible three, it's going to be disaster. You confuse, they're going to say, I don't want to be paying tax. People don't like to hear that word. I don't. I know I don't. I use a different language, but at right now, I would sit back and see what's going to happen with Measure C on the forerunner of these two entities right now. Since I've attended those meetings, Scott, and I'm being streetwise on this issue, I would wait until the dust covers, settles down, and find out where these guys are at on these two measures and how it's going to roll to the public. And I think right now it'd be premature to go forward on this right now. That's my instinct, you know. Being a person on the ground all the time with the public, I'm just telling you straight up. That's my opinion, Scott.
Thanks, council member. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would like to just make a comment. I really appreciate that we're looking at Plan B, because honestly, the way things are going with the Measure C and just the way things are going with California, people are sick and tired of paying extra taxes, and they don't have there's no honesty out there in regards to how our taxes are really being used. So that's number one. I like that if we do get to pass this, we get control. Our city gets control. We get to control our taxes, where it's going to go to public safety, not railroads, sorry, the streets, infrastructure, parks, right? I like that. But the thing is that, again, I think we're kind of looking at this prematurely, and we need to see what's going to happen with the Measure Cs. And then we can, just like you mentioned, Kendall, we can do a special election. We can move that forward and say, let's start with the poll and see what our citizens, how they feel. Because, I've been doing this for several years now, walking the streets, and that's what we do when we run for council. We talk to the citizens, and that's one of the biggest complaints they have is, do we have to pay? And our taxes went up another, $200 because of this measure or because of this. And I hear it, we hear it all the time. But when we want to see improvement, things have to get done. And sometimes that's what we have to do. And half a cent, I try to calculate that, and I look at it, and it's about 10 cents for every $100. Am I right? And then 3/4 of it, it's 15 cents for every $100. So when we look at it that way, it's not that much. But if it improves our streets and improves our public safety, improves our roads, that's kind of what we have to look at. So those are my comments,
I concur the fact that we have to, it would be best in our ability of the council to look at what the next election is. I'll reserve my comments in regards to what the city of Selma should be doing for the future in regards to sales tax increases that's going to implement our community. Our community doesn't just say a 1/4% is going to be great and it'll help our community. It's actually how we represent this community and how we do our expenditures. So I reserve that comment in regards to if I'll be for it, but I do feel that this council is right. We should wait for the election and then we'll have that kind of deliberation in the future in regards to what we should be doing to help our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also have to agree, and I think even if Measure C passes, maybe we can look at doing the tax anyways to, to be prepared for the future, because right now there's a lot of work to be done on our streets and, everything else, infrastructure, to where we could use some help. But I guess after the November election, we'd be more prepared to make an actual decision on where we're going. Oh, and thank you for the presentation. That was good.
Okay.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. All right. With that, we're going to move on to our next item, which I believe is future agenda items. Council request for future agenda items not subject to public comment. Items require a consensus. Does council have any future agenda items they would like to?
Yeah,
bring forward?
I actually do, Scott. I actually wrote some of these down. I want to go back, in the past, I know for a fact, it was back in the time frame where I was on the council, there was a bike fees in play, for the residents of Selma. And I wanted to bring back the bike fees to the citizen, it's a small fees. People have bikes but what I wanted on this particularly bike fees, I want to include the e-bikes as well. A little tax license, they license their e-bikes in our community and also possibilities, these motorized scooters, I call them. Is there like transportation? I want to put a license on them as well. It's a small piece. I'm not asking a lot because it just make sure that we keep our sidewalks, up to keep and the roads are not so bumpy and they'll fall off and get hurt. And I just want to make sure that we had it in the past, the bike fees, regular bike fees. It wasn't that much. I think it was only $2 or $3 annually. And so I want to bring it back to the council on this issue, on the bike fees, and include the e-bikes as well. And what we did back then, the kids that had that were in grammar school, I think we waived the fees on the kids if they're going to school. We waived the fees on them. They're going to school, high school,
So the point of it is to register the bikes.
Yeah, this is a current municipal code done back in the 50s, and all bike users are, per the code, supposed to go and pay a license fee to the police department and be licensed. And anybody not riding or anybody riding a bike without a license or paying the fee can be fined potentially. That's the way that the current code reads right now. So,
yeah.
so would this be reviewing the code and increasing the fees and requiring fees for additional?
Yeah, I would come back and review the fees and put some these new bike rules that we have, these new technology bikes in play into the issue as far as also the scooters as well. So I just, because someone brought to my attention that they went down to City Hall here and they wanted to pay their bike fees and no one knew about it.
Yeah, like I said, probably from the.
I don't blame, we have new staff. I understand that.
So with the regional project, a Measure C, there was a component of that, our city and our two neighboring cities, Fowler and Kingsburg, we got 42 million bucks out of Measure C for the regional project, which will go away under the current measure. But part of that was putting in bike lanes. And so there's always bikes being encouraged to be used more in society. And if people are buying bikes and they need to register them, and the PD can look at somebody and say maybe that that person's riding a stolen bike, but they really wouldn't know unless someone had registered that bike. So what I'm hearing from the council member is to be a way of people being able to register their bikes in the event that they get stolen in the future. Or is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what I want. Because that money could be used, because the police department collected it back then. And that could be used to, for the police department, for their public safety, for the kids in school and stuff like this. Or, for the kids in the future, helmets and stuff like that. Because in the past, uh, my boy was up, short story, my boys in Boy Scouts, and we did a deal at Eric White because a kid had died hit by a car and he was on his bike. He didn't have a helmet. Unfortunately, he died. And we did the project with one of the officers. In fact, he's here today. He's now the chief of police, believe it or not. So we did it way back then, and we gave a bike away free, but also we did training. And ever since then, there hasn't been no access to front of that school no more. So things do happen.
Got it.
For the right things.
Right.
I want to bring it back. And the other second thing, I want to look at the costs on the Pioneer Village to bring it more suitable for, we have more events cost wise. So we can have more events taking place instead of being stagnant, drop the price maybe or showcase it more. Cause we used to, back in the past, we had barbecues, we had the cook-offs and all that. We don't have that no more. So I'm trying to strategize to generate more money for the city of Selma that goes back into the public here and to enjoy the life in our city of Selma. That's all I got.
Thank you.
For the first one, the bike fees, revisiting that, and fees for e-bikes, is there
Is there
consensus?
consensus to add this? Sure. Both of these, okay. Councilman?
I was reading, I was looking at Facebook the other day. Not that I do it all the time, but I was just scrolling through. There was a conversation about taking part in sports, and some of the arguments they had was they were pretty. Way back when I was Parks Commission, and Kaiser used to give us a even program that if, like some of my constituents on Barrio, the parents couldn't afford to pay, they would come in, fill out an application. We as a commission, we have the power to grant, get a couple of kids, 3 kids, a lot of money for these farm working families too. So a lot of kids in a heated discussion because they're saying, hey, well, what can we do? And they're saying big drop in all sports.
Yeah.
Because of the price. Maybe
Some
talking to Kaiser, I know, senior, that grant, I don't know why it was taken away and given. Funding to.
We want to explore the sources of the funding for folks who can't afford the cost to sign up for the teams.
Yes.
Okay.
I know I talked to Kaiser when we took that tour. The guy that was in charge of them building those 3 little league. Yeah, the foundation funded that.
Well,
50,000 we used to get from Kaiser was through the foundation, but I don't know if we lost contact with them.
I'm meeting with them next week, so I can bring it up.
What the deal was, but I don't care. A lot of kids came forward and
All right, do we have consensus on that?
We do. All right, so I'll go, in terms of future items, to build on what Councilman Avalos was saying a little bit about Pioneer Village. We had an issue that, the city manager really helped with last week regarding a special event. And we looked at it and it said 90 days notice for an event that requires a road closure, which is understandable because, you've got a lot of issues with road authorities, with PD, with traffic issues. 90 days is more understandable, but it's 45-day minimum notice for a special event permit not requiring a road closure. To me, that's excessive. And city manager did say, that it's got to go to the city. Different departments have to look at it potentially, so it can take some time. There's back and forth with the folks applying for the permit. But maybe we could look at making that a little more flexible. The 45 days, maybe we need another sub tier, or maybe we reduce that 45 days. Because in this case, we were talking about with special events, someone had a pretty generic event going on. And the only reason they got turned down was because of the 45-day lead time was being met. So I think that could be a problem. And I'd like to bring this back to kind of brainstorm and figure out a better way of building this mousetrap. And either shortening the 45 days or kind of qualifying the conditions, maybe making it a little more flexible in terms of folks taking the application, so it doesn't have to go to the city manager, in the event that there are issues, that it could, maybe have some discretion at the line with folks considering the application, or even online. Their consensus to take a look at that?
yes.
Most definitely, but can we just streamline it to everyone instead of just special?
It could be all events. Yeah, it could be whatever requires the 45 days. I think it's special events or events. I mean, I think we discussed most of those events are in the park.
Yeah.
So, that can be some issues with the food vendors and getting the permits from the health department. I get that sometimes, but I think there needs to be more flexibility.
Yep, we will look at that and bring that back.
Awesome. And then can we also look at bringing back finally and just definitively coming up with our approved building colors for downtown? I mean, it's time. I know we voted on it and now we got to put it into the ordinance or our building code. And it's very technical language to put those approved colors in the building code. Let's do it. Let's ask the city engineer to do it. We did, the bid approved it, but it has to be. Director Moreno, did you want to address that issue?
Yeah, so regarding the colors, it needs to be in the downtown design guidelines, which the conversation has started with, the consultant who built the downtown plan. I met with our new city planner to kind of see what that looks like. And this week, I think Thursday, city manager and myself have a meeting with that design guideline person to start the process of what that would look like.
Starting the process is great, but I want to know when we're going to end the process so that we can get our downtown, our storefront grant moving forward, because there's a lot of interest in that. If you go downtown, it's looking really good. Public Works has made it look really good. A lot of us are painting our buildings. We got another building right there at 2nd Street that's looking better. But people are unclear about what they can do and what they can't.
And that's because there hasn't been any downtown design guidelines that have been completed or even started. So when Jose and I were looking for information on it, there's some discussion and about colors and what type of colors that want, but nothing has been codified, nothing has been adopted. So then we run into potential, and I think Neil could speak on that, legal issues relating to what we can require of people right now. So we want to make sure that we're doing this and getting that. So I don't have an exact timeline, but we'll work on getting you what that timeline is.
Yeah, because this is, we've been working on what the timeline is for a long time. We had someone who was looking at that in a previous administration, and it just never went anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think let's with council consensus, let's move it forward.
Yes.
Let's get these colors because, again, it relates to the downtown storefront grant as well, because, you look at that and everything looks really good, but you're wondering, wait, where's the paint? Where can I get a grant for painting? Well, it's not in there because the colors haven't been approved in the
Yep,
downtown
exactly.
design guidelines. So let's get there.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Trio, did you have any future?
Can I add something to,
Yep.
On the Pioneer Village, let's be honest, the bathrooms are the biggest concern. And Director Moreno can tell you he's been, his group has been doing a big event there, the Tejano event. And luckily for the last two big legacy events, Parks and Recreation has been able to rent a couple of trailer bathrooms, which, the women were really happy about. Because, like I said, men use those porta potties and they make a mess, and the ladies open it up and they almost throw up, and, that's just reality. And they come and tell me, hey, aren't you city council? Why, we need to get those bathrooms replaced and fixed. It's just the reality. I know we're working on grants and trying to get help from other agencies and boards. And so I think we need to put that on there when we bring his item two and see where we're at. Yeah. As far as those bathrooms.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on to council reports. Brief report by council members of the city-related functions is authorized by the Brown Act. Councilman Trujillo?
Oh, that was me.
Go this
Yeah,
way
just
tonight.
quick shout out to the police department. Had my aunt and uncle, while I was out of the country, call me and specifically point out that they're coming out of the doctor's office and they couldn't get their walkers out. And one of the police officers just ran over there and took it out, and really want to give you guys a shout out. I really appreciate that. Just expresses what this community has as a fire department, police department. I've already give thanks many times to the fire department because all my families are getting older. But I really want to just appreciate Public Works, Police Department, everybody in general, because it represents what this community is about. Staff's always doing over and beyond what they have to do. So I really thank you guys for everything, and I wish you guys all a 2026 good year, and prosperous to the council also. Wish you a good year, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended the monthly grants meeting. Speaking of grants, one of them that was discussed was a Parks grant and Pioneer Village with the city manager and Fire Chief Webster. I attended a Selma Cemetery District Board meeting. The audit was presented for 25-26 fiscal year. One of the board members was on it and really found something in that audit that's going to strengthen the financial reporting and accountability of that district. So I really appreciate that. And that's, citizen, that's why we're here. Citizen volunteers. The check register can get tedious, but we're an oversight board, and that's what we're here to do, and really appreciate everybody who takes the time to look at that and bring the issues up. I attended that senior prom at the Portuguese Hall last Friday. Couple unsung heroes not mentioned, city manager. He was there the whole time. Really appreciate that. Director Moreno was treating everybody like the Hollywood rock stars that they are, and taking pictures and running B-roll. And it was just awesome. I know I was walking around and doing a little meet and greet, and this gentleman asked me to come over to his table, and I thought, we're going to have a little discussion maybe about Measure C or something. Instead, he lifted up his coffee cup and said, "I need some decaf." And I went and refilled his coffee cup for him. It was a spirit of service there, and just loved seeing that, and everybody had a great time. I met with the city manager, Councilman Oscar, and Chief Alcarez. Chief Webster, to discuss the replacement of Measure C, which we talked about tonight. That is an issue which will be ongoing. We'll have a lot of talk about that, and we need to keep that in the forefront, because that is a big chunk of money for our roads that we need to make sure that we replace and enhance, as well as public safety. Costs are getting just spiraling upwards, and we do bring in, we are the fourth highest generator of sales tax in Fresno County, after Fresno and Fresno County and Clovis. But still, it's really hard to make everything go around. We've got so many needs because we're growing so much. I attended that Fresno COG and FCRTA meeting that Councilman Avalos attended as well last Thursday until 8:30 at night, and it was contentious, and it was about Measure C. So, this is, we haven't seen the end of that. I want to say thanks again, a special enhanced thank you to Public Works Director Hahn about the landscaping on High Street. Really appreciate you going the extra mile on that. We can, talk about all the infrastructure in the world, but it has to look good too when we bring it in. And that's really what we're doing. We're making our city more beautiful. And so we're having an event like tomorrow's event and the Blossom Trail opening. I encourage everyone to come out at 11 for that. And really, kind of take a look at what we've become as a city. I talk to people in the city all the time, and it's like, you don't really see how far we've come in the last couple of years. I mean, we really made a lot of strides, and we're making our city better. We're making it more livable. We're making it a better city for our residents, and that isn't increasing their taxes. We are going to find a way to be fiscally prudent, and we're going to find a way to do this. If it comes down to replacing an existing tax, then we will look at that. And if it comes down to enhancing our public safety, we'll look at that too. Last item, the Selma Unified Superintendent contacted me today and wanted me to mention to everybody that Heartland School has received the Distinguished Model Continuation School of California for the San Joaquin Valley region. It's another school that's really made a lot of strides in the last couple of years, and really proud of them on that. Also, there will be on April 25th, just for council to know, an active shooter training. That will be from 9 to 3 at the high school stadium. Council members are invited if you'd like to stop by for that. Always important. Don't really want to talk about it, but it's something we have to be ready for and have to prepare for, because it's unfortunately a real part of our society now. And most shootings take place at high schools, in schools. So really sad, but a reality. With that, we will move on to Councilman Oseguera. Do you have a council report tonight? Councilman Avalos, do you have a council report?
Oh, yes. Actually, we're gonna be here for 2 hours, but kidding, guys, kidding. No, one thing I'm gonna thank Dan Barcelos for cooking the food for the seniors for prom night. That was an exciting event for the seniors. They had a great time. They thought you were a waiter there, Scott. But also I also attended the Christians Cafe this week. That's every Wednesday. Everybody takes turns and giving,
Saying happy birthday to Sarah.
giving in generosity back to the people that are, that need hot food, a place to hang out a little bit for a short time. It's a great event, right in front of the library, not, and it's actually, it's a cooling center for the summertime now. So they have their AC up and running. And also, of course, I attended COG. Like Scott said, it's a very intense meeting with COG. It was very super intense on the issues, but and the Fort Runner, we just have to see how it's going to play out. And how it plays out, City of Selma will move forward in one direction or the other. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Councilmember. We'll move on to our final oral communications of the evening. Does anybody have any parting words they would like to say tonight?
Just have a question. The downtown improvement, was there any plans to go further down High Street, like in front of the hardware store? And because that's all part of the downtown area, I'm assuming. And then also I wanted to know if there were any plans to pave or repave the parking lots, and then what the status of the police parking lot was.
The manager status of the police parking lot. I think that was something the city engineer brought up at the last council meeting.
Yeah, I haven't
Drainage
seen,
issue.
I haven't seen an estimate on that yet, but once we have that, then we'll be bringing that
Thank
back.
you. And we'll be bringing the design guidelines back as well for input and review.
Rose Robertson, 1057 Mill Street. I just want to say, I really appreciate what was really important for so many years that I've been one of them with many others. Our city, citizens of Selma that really wanted transparency of where our monies was going. And a lot of that was, we were able to see some of it. However, I think one of the most important thing as we shouted for was our finance director. So I really appreciate that we have a finance director. And I think everybody sees that there's been a lot of transparency and things are within our departments and a whole lot better. So thank you, thank you. I think this whole administration's starting to work together, our new city manager, our council who are doers. Us citizens of Selma really appreciate all of you working together. Han, having a deadline for tomorrow to showcase Selma. That's outstanding. It happened with your hard workers, the maintenance. They really worked really hard. The bid is coming together. Appreciate that. People are starting to see that it's not just going to be High Street. High Street is just becoming and has been the heart of Selma with the art center there. That people really appreciate and love that art center. Before it was the heart of Selma, High Street. It's becoming the square, High Street, Second Street, West Front Street, and First Street. It's going to be the heart of the square of Selma. With the people talking about it, with the businesses on there, the bid owners on the bid, understanding it. But I do have one question. Appreciate that our city manager and Jose that works extremely hard on not just the bid with everything else in the city that he's doing. I do have a question. I had somebody ask me just yesterday if I wanted to see the color they were going to do their building, and it was going to be a green, the color of my Suburban, kind of off military green color. I think it was joking, but I don't know for sure. So my question would be, what would be the results or the consequences if somebody really did paint a building that's going to be purple, orange, that is going to be anything close to what we're doing? And I actually stated, what I guess are you going to apply for the grant? And they said no. So they don't apply for the grant that it's going to be offered. So they go paint it purple. They don't. What happens then if they just go paint it purple on their own?
Thank you. Good question. That's why we're moving forward with the downtown design guidelines to make sure that those questions which come up can be addressed through the city code in a legally defensible way.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Ramirez. I just had a quick question. I know we had DUI checkpoints back in December for the holidays. So I want to know, are we gonna have more of those throughout the year? Because they have been proven to be very effective. Even just one stop alone, that's crucial. So I want to know if we're gonna have more, maybe quarterly or more throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds good. I know the city's always applying for grants for DUI checkpoints, so that's really important with our new grant writer. Okay, anybody online or on the phone with parting comments tonight?
Mayor, I see no hands raised at this time.
Well, okay, so with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you at the next meeting.